What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to SIBZ, West Coast, East Coast Siblings. Tonight we got episode 6 of Defending Jacob. We're going to talk about the 3 biggest takeaways as always, but first, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss a single upload as I cover this entire series. Let's get into it. Starting off with big takeaway number 1, guys, this is the episode where the trial officially begins. Now, of course, this was something that Andy was trying to avoid altogether, trying to get as much information on whatever and whoever he could, including Leonard Patz, in order for them to stop the chance of Jacob actually taking the stand. As you know from watching the episode, it didn't turn out like that. Of course, at the end of all this, we're going to find out how Andy ends up in this situation he's in when they keep flashing forward to him being interviewed by Neil, who, by the way, was a total jerk in this episode, especially in how he dealt with Matt McGrath. Speaking of whom, we have takeaway number 2, arguably the biggest takeaway from the episode, which is Matt McGrath finally comes forward with the information that he knows regarding Leonard Patz. We talked about this last week. I thought it was possible that Matt, aka Dorchester Boy, had some information about Leonard having those pictures of Ben on his phone. Turns out Matt had much more and better information than that, giving detail into how Leonard was not only trying to mess with him, but then once that had ended, that had fizzled out, he was talking about his next victim, the person he was into at that point, and that was Ben. Now, they were saying it could be any Ben, but we know that it is indeed the deceased Ben Rifkin that Leonard Patz was then targeting. And just like we were discussing weeks ago, while Ben may have been the next target, I don't think Leonard actually got the chance to do anything, thankfully, despite the circumstance. Matt McGrath also tells the investigators that Leonard Patz was in possession of a knife which they didn't find. But look, at this point, it should be a wrap. There's reasonable doubt at this point that Jacob committed these crimes. You can't say with beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jacob committed these murders. Jacob has no priors, he has no criminal history, while Leonard Patz not only has a history, but he also has a knife, just like Jacob, which they weren't able to find. And you have this kid, Matt McGrath, who is an eyewitness saying that this person has committed crimes and verbally expressed his desire to go after the murder victim. And look, I'm not an investigator. I don't know how all this stuff works, but it's going to be pretty hard to suspend disbelief if they're trying to convince the audience that Jacob, who has no priors, has a higher likelihood of killing Ben Rifkin than this already pervert criminal, Leonard Patz. Finally, guys, takeaway number 3, we have the results when it comes to the murder gene. Turns out the good news is Jacob doesn't have it. The bad news is he has pretty much every other genetic marker that he could pull something like this off. But honestly, it still pales in comparison to the mountain of evidence and likelihood of committing the crime that you have with Leonard Patz. Again, I'm not a professional. But yes, news of these genetic predispositions to violent crime or lack of empathy, as they said, not only for Jacob, but for Andy and Andy's dad, Billy, the murderer, was all that it took to send Lori once again off to crazy town. Hey, look, science is great, learning is great, but Lori is now literally looking for validation for the fact that she already blames Jacob for the situation they're in and pretty much thinks that he did it. She's looking for validation from the therapist that Jacob could be capable of something like this based on the fact that he lacks empathy and all this stuff. I mean, it's just like Andy said, you could run a whole bunch of kids through these tests. A lot of them will probably end up lacking empathy. I mean, we live in a super egotistical society now, especially with the younger and younger generations, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of them just care about themselves and aren't really empathetic to anybody else's troubles. Hot take? Yeah, I'll leave it in there. Also, quick bonus takeaway. You had the guy in the blue Lincoln who was stalking Andy and Lori and their family and even possibly other people in the neighborhood. I really don't have too much to go on as far as who this could be. It could be sent from his father, Billy. It could be sent from Neil, the jerk detective, who's looking for every little bit of evidence that he can get. So definitely let me know down in the comments what you thought of that and any predictions that you have, as well as all the takeaways that we had for today. This was a pretty good episode, and I'm excited to see this trial get going. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the 3 biggest takeaways from Defending Jacob episode 6. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a single episode as we continue to cover this series, as well as a whole bunch of other movies and TV shows we cover here on this channel. Also, be sure to check out our sister channel, The Ladequente Ledger. Links to everything will be down in the description below. We got a lot of awesome content over there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week for episode 7. Peace.